it's okay to take time. And this is something that I tell myself as well. People tend to be very immediatist, like they want things now. And in the corporate world, that's not really going to happen. My name is Rodrigo. I work at Uber as a diversity and inclusion business partner for our EMEA region, which is Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and for the APAC region as well, which is Asia Pacific. As a diversity and inclusion business partner, what it entails on my job is ensuring that everyone at Uber, regardless of their background, is accepted, is celebrated, and they have equal access to opportunity. And I do that via, reviewing our HR processes, by engaging with different communities, engaging with leaders, creating a strategy, supporting our employee resource group. So there's a lot of that go into that. I think my favorite thing is probably supporting our employee resource groups, because they are the networks of employees that are LGBT and their allies, or people of color like Black and their allies, etc., etc. So they represent different demographics, and I really get a lot of energy of working with them and supporting their project. Least favorite thing, contrary to what a lot of people think about when D&I work, when they think about diversity and inclusion, they think almost like activism. And D&I is actually a lot about reviewing processes to see where there is bias, or where there is potential for bias of different people to come in, and correcting those processes to ensure that they can be as fair as possible. So there is a lot of work that goes into reviewing documents and things like that. And sometimes, it is a bit repetitive, but it is extremely important to do that. So, but sometimes it is like you don't want to read the same document for the 20th time, just to ensure that it is a good document, that it is fair, it is a process that is inclusive, etc. I'm from Latin America. I'm from Brazil, and growing up in the '90s as a gay kid, like a gay boy in a religious family, it was tough, right? Because my family didn't really accept me. Like church didn't accept me. I went to military school, which was also not the most inclusive environment. So it was a tough period to find out that you're gay and to be who I was. And I was lucky enough that at university, and when I started doing internships and I started working, my workplaces were very inclusive, at least towards me. I was always very accepted as a gay man. I never had to hide that in any of the places I worked since the first semester of university. And that showed me that how important that is, because there were areas of my personal life that I could not be my full self, but at work I was. And this is kind of how this became so important for me, because I know that there are people out there today that this is the reality for them as well. When I was 18, I was very lost, I would say. I started business school. I didn't like it, so I dropped out, and I had to retake, like in Brazil back then, we had kind of an SAT like in the US, and then you would apply for a specific course. So I had to retake that because I didn't like business school, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I literally, I could only study in my city because my parents could not afford to support me in another city in Brazil. So the university in my city, the free university, was the only option that I had. So I literally got a list of the courses they offered, and I was like, not this, not this, not this. And psychology was literally the only one left. So I was like, well, I guess that's it. So I went to study psychology. And so from there, I kind of liked HR. So I kind of went that route. And then I also liked gender studies a lot. So I kind of specialized in a way in both, even though in Brazil there's not really specialization, but it was the two things that I really liked and that I studied more. And I was like research assistant, etc., etc. And through those two things, I actually ended up working in HR and recruiting for many years. And this is how I came to Europe, actually, to work with recruiting. And at Uber, I had the opportunity to transition into D&I. So I've been working at D&I only for 2 years. So it took a long time. Like, I realized I did not want to do recruiting anymore. So when I was maybe like 28, 29, I realized that that was not for me, even though that was almost the only thing I've done in my career in terms of like my professional career. But I realized I did not want to do that for more years. And I was lucky enough that at Uber there was the opportunity to change paths, and I managed to get this role. Look, for me, it had a lot to do with the fact that I was gay and I knew my family didn't accept me, and I went through a long journey of accepting myself and knowing that not necessarily what my parents or leaders in church, whatever, told me was the right thing. So for me, particularly, the strength came out of that, because it was a long period from my early teenage years until I was like 18, 19 to figure that out. On the other hand, there was like this professional aspect was a little bit easier, on the sense of, even though like I had problems with my parents, but they always considered me very smart, and they always trusted my decisions on things, on that aspect at least. So when I was telling them no on something, they kind of accepted it, even though they didn't agree, and they made it very clear that they didn't agree with it, but they accepted it. And another thing that helped was that my parents didn't really study. So for instance, university, they had no idea how the university system worked. All of that I had to figure out myself, because I also come from like a poor family. So that helped as well, because they had no idea, like they knew what they wanted me to be, but they had no idea how to make me get there, because they didn't follow that path. They didn't have friends that went to university. They basically dropped out when they were like in fourth grade or something like this. So this was ended up playing to my advantage a little bit, because they didn't know and they always trusted me in that sense. So I just managed to do what I wanted to do, as again, within the possibilities of, I was living with them, and I had to stay in my city because of money, but that kind of is how I, for me, that's how I built the confidence on accepting that I was gay, and that, the world would think differently. And by using the disadvantage of my parents not having any kind of network or knowledge about the college system, I use that to my advantage to say, you don't know what you're talking, because you don't know, you literally don't know. So let me take care of that. I need you to trust me. Yeah, mine I think was a bit unorthodox, because when I was halfway through college, so college, just like the psychology bachelor that I did back in Brazil was 5 years. And when I was in like 2.5 years, more or less, I was doing an internship in a recruitment agency. And through that recruitment agency, there was a business opening in my city. And I was the person in charge of recruiting everything for that company that was opening. And the HR manager liked me so much that she offered me a job, a full-time position. And I studied in the evening. So my course was actually from like 6 or 7 p.m. until like 11 p.m. And she offered me a full-time position from like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I accepted it. And this was my first job. And I know that's a little bit unorthodox, because again, it was literally fell on my lap. I mean, it was not true. It was luck together with, doing a good job. But I got my first full-time job. And with that, I saved enough money, like through, 2 years to come to Europe. And in Europe, it was literally like I had no network. So I had to find a way to apply for positions here. So I literally applied for hundreds of positions until I got an internship in Europe after I graduated. And then I came, but it was a little bit of luck, because it was literally sending hundreds of CVs to random companies and random positions, because I had no network. I didn't know anyone. So in that sense, it was literally applying for like hundreds and hundreds. An application, like I worked many years in recruiting, right? So the advice that I have on that is it is a numbers game. Sometimes you are gonna apply for like 200 jobs and get 5 interviews, and this is reality. This is how it is, you know. One, know what is important for you in terms of what you look for in a company, in an employer, and try to narrow your search on that. And sometimes you don't know, and that's fine. And then you have to try until you realize, and that's perfectly okay. But I think once you realize, look for that, because then you're not going to waste time of your career with companies that don't offer you what you're looking for, because employers actually, it's a two-way street. Like employment is a two-way street. You are giving something to the company, but you need to be receiving something on top of the money as well, The second thing is, it's okay to take time, and this is something that I tell myself as well, especially for like people that, I'm 31, for people that are younger than me. People tend to be very immediatist, like they want things now, and in the corporate world, that's not really gonna happen. It's gonna take time for you to figure out what you like. It's gonna take time for you to find a job that you really enjoy. It's gonna take time for that promotion. It's not gonna come in 6 months. So just wait, and that's fine. But yeah, I think those are the most important two things that I would say. Like, try to realize what you want in an employer and look for that. And the other is learn to have patience, because this is going to be helpful in the corporate life.